Hey, welcome back to the Unbounded podcast where we have real conversation with real people. We're on our mid-series season break right now, but we got something special coming to you. We advertise it on social media. Just friends and conversations right now. So I was thinking about who could I get on here talking about, three great topics. This is one of three. One of them just cracked a Coca-Cola at 9 o'clock in the morning, which we heard in the background. But, we got three great friends on tonight. Some of these folks I've known for about 30 years. But we're going to be talking about something I think we talk about on the golf course. We talk about one-on-one and travels and stuff. We're going to talk about being men as fathers. But particularly tonight or today on this episode, we're talking about fathers and daughters. So we're going to get real on some conversations about what it's like to be a girl dad. So we got 4 girl dads on here. Disclaimer, all of us have served in the military all over the place. We're all civilians now. But we've been girl dads for, I don't know if I'm the oldest, have the oldest girl. I think maybe Marcus, because he's about 57. I think he just turned 57. So I think my daughter's 29. But we'll get into all those particulars in a second. But what I want to start this off is not the typical introduction of who these guys are, but I want them to talk about just a quick introduction of themselves and, hey, what's your girl dad situation? What are your kids' ages and what are they doing right now? And let's get into a conversation. So let's start with Marcus, since I think he has he might have the most girls. Let's get with Marcus. Oh, I forgot. We got Abi on here. We got. I bet. So you're gonna learn.
Hey, listen. I'm competing with Father Abraham. I got 3 daughters, and I do think. So I have 3 daughters, and I think I have the oldest. My oldest is 30.
Okay, yeah, you got it.
Yeah, so my oldest being 30, my next baby girl, because all of them are my baby girls. So my next one's 24, and then my baby girl, she's 8, soon to be 9 next month. So definitely excited about this show, and looking forward to talking more and unpacking this with you guys.
Awesome. All right. What about you, Abi? Because I think it'll take you a little bit longer to explain your situation.
Situation, I guess, is one way to put it. No, I mean, yeah, I got 4. So my oldest is just turned 24, and then I got a 14-year-old daughter, a just turned 8-year-old daughter, and a 3-year-old daughter. That's actually sleeping right over here next to me. So if this podcast start to go a certain type of ways, because she done woke up, because she actually runs the house. So yeah,
Here
man,
we go.
we keep it moving.
Awesome. Hey, what about you, Charles Flanagan?
Yeah, man. So good morning, fellas. Good to see you guys, man. So I got one. She's 21. She just turned 21 in February. So she's down in Florida, University of West Florida. So I got one. That's it.
Awesome. So yeah, I'll round this out. I have 2 girls. They're 24, about to be 25 and 30, but they're 24 and 29 right now. I think Marcus and I kids are almost just about the same age within months of each other. But yeah, 24 and 30. I had kids young. I just turned 42. So, I just turned 50, but no, I did. I mean, we'll talk about that too. But, Marcus and Abi both being, similar age and having kids, I would love to crack that open as we talk about this, how it is having, close to being 50 years old or in your mid 40s and having young girls. Because for me, I was 21, 22 having a daughter versus, being 40 something having a daughter who is young. So I think all of those things will crack open, but I appreciate that. So when we thought about this first episode, fathers and daughters, I don't think, I was searching around the internet and I was looking at conversations that's being had out there, and I could not find, I think it was Flanagan and I on a recent trip that we started having this conversation. We were out of the country at a cigar bar, and we had a mutual conversation about, our daughters who are in their 20s and just that interpersonal relationship of, and then Marcus and I end up having the same conversation. It just dawned on me. I'm like, man, this isn't just, it's just not just me. This is just, part of, the lives that we have lived, how we were brought up in our, communities and all these different things, all these different dynamics of raising women not just being a girl dad. Like how raising women, men is something that's a deeper conversation. So I want to start off with the first question, and we're going to just have a discussion as we always do on this podcast, just a discussion because I know most of our stories, but how did you find out that you was going to be a girl dad? Like, tell me what that instant happened. Like, how did that happen? How do you become a girl dad? How about you, Abi?
Well, I guess it depends on how you define girl dad. And I know that phrase got coined, with Kobe, right? And he talked about it. Mine is a little bit different. The way that I was able to be a part of my 24-year-old life was very different because
Yeah,
that was from a previous marriage, previous relationship. And I was not, as matured, you know what I mean, and understood what it took to be just a dad in general, right? Let alone a girl dad until much later. And so, I've said very open and honestly, my 3-year-old and my 8-year-old get a very different version than what my 24-year-old got. And so I think, from the girl dad, kind of perspective, it was probably much later, right? And so, you would think that in an ideal state, oh, when you have your first daughter, that's when you realize. I'm just being honest, that's not when it occurred for me, right? It occurred much later, to really realizing what it takes to to your point, raise a woman, right? And
yeah,
so it was probably my third daughter, Kennedy, that really had me understanding, because I've got boys as well, right? Had me understanding that there is a very different approach to raising
Hmm.
a daughter.
yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, to answer your question, much later than probably it needed to be, to really not just know it, but to recognize that there is a difference.
No, that's fair, man. That's fair. What about you, Charles?
Yeah. So I go back to the Kobe reference, right? And so I was raising a young boy at the time before I had my daughter. And so my son, we were along, it was like we were little homies. Like I would take him to the gym, he's right by me. But when my daughter came, it was different, man. It was kind of like an awakening, right? It was like I couldn't treat her the same way I could treat my son. So, she didn't want to go to the gym and do all the things that, me and my son could relate to. It was more I had to get down to her level. Like I had to play with baby dolls. I had to figure out how to do her hair in some instances, and then cook too. Like her thing was cooking. Um, and so my first instance of understanding who she was she loved my French toast, but it was not what you thought it was, right? But she loved it. You know what I mean? And so that
Mm.
was that was the time when we shared together a moment of, man, I could relate. We could relate together. And then when Kobe came along a little bit later, it was like that was validation because now,
I'm
man, I'm
certain.
validated by just being present with my daughter. But it's definitely different than raising a son. It is totally different.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think I'm the only one here without a son. That no sons. I know for me, having two sisters that I know I was raised completely different than myself. My sisters think I got away with everything. So
Right.
because I'm the youngest. But anyway, Marcus, what about you?
Yeah. That explains a lot about you, though. Thank you for clarifying.
Right.
Baby boy, yeah, okay, that
Yeah.
explains a lot.
Exactly.
Hey, so me, I'm gonna combine the two, and then I'm gonna back up a little bit. When I first found out I was going to be a father, there was some potential health scares, right? So I didn't have the healthy baby, and she came along. It was great. And the reason I said I want to combine both of them, yeah, I'll be, like me, similar upbringing. Hey, man, I was out here growing up trying to raise, my daughter, but I grew up in a hard-nosed family, right? So I didn't make the distinction like Charles did, right, early on. Knowing there's a difference between raising a boy and raising a girl. My girls now tell you, like, they did everything dad did. Dad went to the gym and hooped, and girls was right with me hooping and the whole nine. Now, they got two different versions. Like my older girls is from a previous relationship, and then my baby girl now is 100% getting a more seasoned, more experienced, more in tune father than I was when I was, really young, having two kids. So yeah, definitely, I'm very grateful for this conversation, because often at times when you're going through things like this, you can't lean on your tribe, and you don't know who has the similarities and who you can reach out to and kind of talk to and unpack. But for me, definitely two different dads, two different times, and I'm just grateful to have the opportunity to use all of the wisdom and pour into my baby girl now. So.
Yeah, man, I appreciate that. I tell you, for me, and you see this a lot, and I know a couple of y'all talked about previous relationships and different things like that, and that goes, vice versa, right? For me, becoming a dad, just in the sense of becoming a dad and a girl dad, my oldest daughter, and we don't use, like my oldest daughter is my daughter. We don't even use like stepdaughter or anything. Like, I've been with her since she's 1.5 years old. I'm the only person that has been in her life, and that's she's. To the point where she got my GI Bill, my youngest daughter did. And there's no contention in our house over that. She's my daughter. But me becoming a dad was so fast and furious. Like, and especially a girl, a girl dad, like, actually, Charles and I were stationed together way back in England. And I met my wife, and we were married 4 months later. And she had a 1.5-year-old at the time. So we got married quick. And at the time, the whole time we dated and the whole time we were together, even I deployed a little bit and came back and we got married, I never met her daughter. Her daughter was at home with her mom because she was deploying and doing things. So I never met my daughter until after I was married to her mom, living in the same house.
Wow.
And why I say that story, because I said, I remember becoming a girl dad the day that I was driving to Heathrow Airport to pick up my wife and my daughter for the first time. Did not know how to even put a car seat in the car. Was a nervous wreck and was only 21, 22 years old. So I got introduced into being a father first and to being a father of a girl literally all in one day. It was no easing into this. I've never changed a diaper. I've never heated a bottle up. So for me, that's how I became that's the first time I think I've ever told that story in that kind of formation, because I know there's a lot of families, especially in the military, that are mixed families of people who that's something that I always tell people is like, I look at my two daughters and I've never seen a difference between them, because maybe how I entered into, both of their lives. My second daughter was born in Alaska and, when we were stationed there, but I look at them both and I think the part that I can say, we'll get into how we tried to be the best versions of ourselves for them to emulate. Like, my two daughters don't see each other as stepsisters or anything other than like their sisters. Like, that'll be so foreign to them to even try to understand that there's any other thing between them other than their sisters. That's it. So no, that's how I became a girl dad, and it was daunting, man. And that goes into the next part of this discussion. What were those fears? Like, man, I'm just gonna be honest with you. I'm 22 years old. I'm stationed with Charles Flanagan in England, and we were 20 years old in England, right? And in high school, I know what kind of teenager I was. And I ain't gonna lie, man, my biggest fear, we'll get into this, what was your biggest fear once you went, oh my God, I gotta raise a girl? Oh man, I'm gonna be punished at some point in my life.
Yeah.
Who wanna tackle that? Who wanna tackle a little bit of that?
Man, I'll go. Because ignorantly, I didn't have any fears when I was young. Now, I didn't have one fear of anything happening to my daughter, anything. I don't think I grew into this state that I'm in now because I'm terrified now. Being there, two of them are
Yeah.
grown and one of them are in the house, and I'm like absolutely, sleepless nights, worried about them constantly because of the world we live in, right? But I remember being so immature. I mean, I just felt like I got it. No matter what happens, I got it. Similar to you, Todd. I'm learning how to do hair. I can do it. I can do the rage afro puffs. I know how to take a comb, go down the center
Oh
of the
yeah.
scalp.
Hey boy,
Yeah.
that was my favorite. That was my favorite style, boy. You throw that part down the
Oh,
middle.
go to. Funny story. I had somebody, kind of ask me. It was like, "Hey, who did her hair?" And I took offense. I did. What you think? I did it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I put
yeah,
those
bro.
afro puffs in her head, right?
It was proud,
But
bro.
100% proud. But I'm being completely vulnerable and honest. Like I wasn't scared of anything. The only fear I had initially was worried about the health and having a healthy baby. After that, I felt like I got it. I'm gonna keep them, prayed on them, and do my thing. But as I've gotten older and want to make sure that I prepare my kids for life more, I live with all of the fears. Like don't walk too close to the street, walk on the right side of me, hold my hand. Like somewhat, I probably have swung the pendulum too far to the right. So I'm trying to, make sure I dial it back and prepare them for the future, but not terrify them. So I'll just say, yeah, ignorant when I was young, a little more seasoned now, a little more protective now. But if you were to ask them, the second part of this, they would probably say I was overprotective and how they felt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that a real thing? I mean, I know Abi and Flan. I mean, is that a real thing? Do you see protection for your sons a little bit differently than you see protection for your daughters as you see them grow up? And I know Flan, both of your kids are growing. Do you look at it differently? Like, man, like my girls, but this my boy. Do we see that differently at all?
Completely differently. So my kids know they can finish this line. If I say, "Hey, what's my number one responsibility?" and they'll say, "To keep us safe." Right? To me, that's my responsibility as a father. But what I tell my boys is that their responsibility is to do the exact same thing when I'm not around. Right? So it's a responsibility thing, and that's not to by any means make it seem or imply that a woman or a female can't take care of it. It's none of that, right? But it's as I'm raising them, their mentality to me is different. My daughters, I want them to know that they are strong, but at the same point in time, I also teach them very deliberately, hey, no, 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 like that's dad's responsibility, right? Like my responsibility is to take care of you. And then, for my boys, I let them know, hey, when you're out here with your little sister, hey, you got to make sure that she is, safe. When they go into the park, right? And my daughter comes in the house crying, my first thing is, hey, where your brothers at? Where they at?
Mhm.
Right?
So I want, I want,
Yeah,
I want to
yeah,
talk to them.
E- yeah, exactly. Everything that's going on, where they at? Right? If somebody say something mean to her on the bus, hey, Carter, Avery, where was y'all at? What did y'all say? Right? Because it's Team Scott. You know what I mean? And nobody else outside of your family is going to love on you and want to take care of you more than that, right? So it is very different. I do look at it in a different way. Going to the question though about fears. Yeah, I think as I have matured, and like Marcus said, the world is a scary place, man. Those are the things I think about constantly. There's probably never a time to where it's not a part of my probably conscious when we're walking outside, walking, you know what I mean, down the street. I see them crossing the street. These are my first reaction is always safety. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? To almost a point to where you can be hyper vigilant, which can feel like you're being overprotective, right? But again, I think that's a dad's worst fear or parents' worst fear. I won't even relegate it to dads, right? Is that something happening to your kids, and so my approach though is different for my girls, right? Again, I got a 24-year-old, a 14-year-old, right? A 8-year-old and a 3-year-old, right? My 3-year-old, she can do no wrong, right? So that's just the truth. But what I educate and the way that I talk to my 14-year-old is very different than my 8-year-old. So it's an interesting take, but yeah, I think that you have to raise them in the way that each one of them needs to be raised.
That's good.
That's an interesting point, man. When you're talking about overprotection and stuff, it's something I mean, my daughters did not have a brother to, so if they came in the house crying, it was like, what happened? Do I need to tool up
Right.
what we doing? Like, what we got,
Right.
Hmm.
what we got going on now? Like, who mama and daddy about to get a call and see what their tone of voice is if I got to pull up.
Exactly.
But because my daughters did not have but me in the house, that protectionism, my fear, up until probably 2 years ago, man, like, man, my kids will call me out of the blue and my heart will drop. And they'll be like, I'll go through the whole succession of what happened? You okay? Where you at? Like, what happened? They'll be like, nah, I just need you to cash at me some money. Like, what's
Yeah.
up, bro? Like, a conversation I had, and I love what Abi said about Team Scott, is I had a conversation at the kitchen table way years ago with my daughters about this is Team Simmons. That's it. The four of us, we all we got. Like, so our reliance upon each other is the utmost importance. And this was back when they were teenagers. And that's where I want to go. Like, what lessons, that's the next kind of question. What lessons did you look back or you are currently instilling that you have instilled, you want to make sure that, the women that you are raising, that man, they don't look at it as overprotection. They look at it as still independence, but because my daughters, a couple of things, that location, they shared it, even they're 29 and 24. Even though my 29-year have taken us off a few times because my 24-year-old got a little overzealous, and pulling up on my daughter at 2:00 in the morning, like, oh, I know where you at, but certain things, like, they still share their location with us. And it's not something we require, but I feel extremely, like, fortunate that adults, they still want, that I at least know. Like, sometimes I ain't gonna lie. Sometimes my wife will pull that location. Oh, she at home. Like, I know where she
Mhm.
at. My kids allowed me to buy them ADT. Now I'm just sharing things. Like, I'm like, hey, if you get ADT on your house, I'll pay for it. So what are these things that you have done or you are doing to make sure that you're raising women, but you're also still being that number one protector that they always know that dad's going to be?
Yeah, so real quick, it changes over, seasons, right? You have different moments in time where, it changes from when, they were little girls to, when they became a teenager and now they're into womanhood, right? And so that really, for me, it peeled off, like, after high school, right? It was a cutoff. It was like, I don't not necessarily need dad, but it was a conversation where I couldn't have that, that security conversation. I did, but I couldn't, like, push it in a little bit harder, right? So now I had to allow element of space to happen with her, right? Where she could come up and be safe with speaking to me on topics such as men, because now she's in college and now she's experiencing some knuckleheads like I was. You know what I mean? Like, this dude a knucklehead, and so he's treating me certain ways, and so now she's coming back to me asking questions like, hey dad, how do I deal with these certain elements? And so these conversations with her start to occur. But I think, and I'll back up to answer your question, I think you have to be able to hold space for a woman. And that took me a long time to really understand. It is not about you trying to fix the problem. It's you trying to hold the space for her. And again, not
Hmm.
trying to solve the problem, but just listen. And so that's one thing I had to learn to do too, is just
Yeah.
Hmm.
listen, not just solve the problem.
Man, I was gonna say something very similar, but in a slightly different perspective. I have had to learn, and my wife has helped me with this so much, in how I speak to my daughters and
Mm,
how I approach them with
yeah.
things. Right. Because as a
Hmm.
parent, especially in the heat of the moment, your kids running around and they got, again, I got 6 kids in the house, man. So it's always chaos, right? And you want them just yelling, hey, y'all sit down, blah, blah, right? But what my wife very deliberately, I think, really helped me with was recognizing that impact of having, a big man yelling at, my daughters, and how that can come off isn't a positive thing, because I don't ever want them to be scared of me, right?
Hmm.
And so what I have been, again, very, and I'm gonna use the term deliberate because it has been, what I've been very deliberate about is being in the moment and present and not letting the chaos influence how I respond to really all my children, but especially my daughters, right? Um, I'll give you an example. Just 2 days ago, my daughter, 14-year-old, forgot to tell us she had a soccer game. Right. Well, in high school, these games don't be over till 9 p.m. Right. So it was already a long day. It was a frustrating day. Right. The evenings are always kind of tough, with the kids. So now I go pick her up. It's been a long day. She gets in the car. And she's like, "Oh, sorry, Dad. Sorry, I was running late." But I was like, "Okay, it's fine." So we get home, whatever, blah, blah. And I'm already kind of frustrated. So I go in the house and I notice she just kind of sitting off, just kind of standing over it, like she wants to say something, but she don't know how to say it. And so I was like, "Hey, what's wrong? What's going on? You all right?" She's like, "Yeah, I'm fine." I was like, "All right." And then I came back and I realized, no, 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 no. There could legitimately be something wrong. And so what I reapproached her and said, "Hey, I don't want you to make an assumption that I'm so frustrated that I can't be in a space to receive whatever it is that you want to say. So I'm letting you know that I'm changing my tone, right? And so if there is something, I would love to know what's bothering you, right?" I said, "So I apologize if I came off a little harsh, but what's going on? What I mean? You seem like something's bothering you. Is something bothering you?" And she's like, "Yeah, it was," but it gave her that space to be able to tell it. And it was just some high school girl drama, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it could have been something more, right? And so it's very important that I give them, to Charles's point, the space. But to do that, you've got to approach them the right way. And you've got to allow them to understand that this is safe, right? For you to be able to expose and tell me certain things, because I don't ever want to be in a position to where you're hiding something simply because you're afraid to talk to me.
I add on to that too, right? Is you gotta establish that early in life, right? That doesn't happen overnight. And so when you can try to
Yeah.
establish that rapport early, it starts to be comfortable. It starts to be normal conversation. And I'll tell you, this is what surprised me, and I can validate Abi's point, right? Is when my daughter came to me and was like, "Hey, I'm about to have my period, Dad," and I was like, "Yo," I was
Mhm.
like. And I had to call my mom, right? I was like, "Mom," because I wasn't with anybody at this point in time, right? I was divorced, I was single by myself, but I had to deal with that. But I had to look at it on the other side of that is like, damn, my daughter came to me. That's pretty damn cool that she had the ability to tell me that and not feel a certain type of way. So yeah, I'll just add on to that. It has to start early for that to be comfortable conversation versus it being, to Abi's point, right? It has to be
Yeah.
safe.
Yeah, I mean, this. I feel like y'all attacking me. You
No,
know,
no. Hey,
I've
I'm with
been.
you. I feel attacked too. When Arby said you got to change your tone and all of this
I
other
was
stuff,
like, oh God.
I'm like, man, like I just learned this lesson like 2 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. so so to add context to it, like, I have, if anything, I would self-identify I have failed in this department, like severely. So my oldest two will tell you, like, just some of the instances, to give you some context. So my daughter joined the Air Force, and when she joined the Air Force, she was assigned to my organization, right? So she worked in a squadron while I was the group chief in a squadron, right? So
Oh, wow.
and for me, ignorantly, I was like, "Oh, this is going to be an awesome opportunity. I get to spend all this time with my child. Like, she's here. We're going to do lunches. She's going to come up here. She's going to ask for help on the EPRs and get feedback." And I was like, "Oh, I can't wait. Oh man, it's going to be awesome." Yeah, no. That's the answer to that. That did not happen like I thought it was going to happen. And in fact, the more that I helicoptered parent, the more I lost her, because my version and how I thought I was providing protection was coming off to her as controlling. And to be honest, that was the intent, right? I wanted to control the decisions that she made and in a safe space, right? I wanted her to make all of the right opportunities. And what I did not do, I did not allow for the conversation and feedback. I didn't have conversations with her on how she's feeling, on how she's looking at these things. And it became more of, okay, dad said do this, dad said do that. Right. So I didn't have that space of open communication. Now we're good now, and our relationship has definitely grown. But it was a period of time for, and Todd, you know this, that for
Yeah.
like a year, it was like one of the worst feelings in my life of not being able to influence the person who belongs to me. Right. So yeah, definitely, this is good advice that I wish I had, 20 some odd years ago.
Yeah, man, and that brings up a good pivot point, man. In this piece, man, I trust me. I always say my kids got two versions of me because they're 5 years apart. Like,
Yes.
my youngest daughter got completely Chief Master Sergeant Simmons, and this is not a military podcast, but I'm just saying, like, I thought about this after I retired. I remember at my retirement, Flan was at my retirement, and I don't know if I mentioned this. I don't know if you were at my retirement dinner, but my youngest daughter, who just turned 18 when I was retiring, does not public speak. She's an assertive person, but she just don't get it. She don't. That's not her. That's not her ministry. But she got up at my retirement dinner, wasn't on the agenda, and like said something, about like she understands why I had to do all the things I had to do and be away, all of that stuff. That thing still crushed. I can't even watch it. I can't even talk about it. But my youngest daughter, man, at 18 years old, when I retired, she got 7 years of a chief master sergeant, 3 years of a senior master sergeant.
Mm, mm.
Her entire life was wrapped up into a person who was consumed by the military.
Yes.
And my oldest daughter did not get that. My oldest daughter got 7 years at Japan at one base, got a chance to, leave there when she was turning 13. I was there from staff to master, which was a time when it was fun. So she got majority of her life in one place with a different human being.
Yep.
Mm.
I analyzed that and I went, because if you would have talked to my two daughters and you would have talked to them about their experiences with their dad, their experiences, you would think that they would have two completely separate human beings they were raised with. My oldest daughter is like my little best friend, that goes through her stuff sometime, but her conversations with me is very like, I had a great time as a military child, and it was, my youngest daughter is like, it ruined my life.
Yeah.
It completely
Yeah.
ruined my life being a
Man,
military child.
that is such a profound thing that I realized. It was a year ago. And so I got a 5-year-old son, Kobe, who is all boy.
Yeah.
Run, jump, play, hit, kick, flip, right? And he was wanting me to go outside and play, right? And I was like, man, I'm tired and blah blah. And my wife said, man, he need a young dad. Right. And the truth is, right, it was an epiphany for me.
Yeah.
It really was. And it was like, yeah, you got a 40-something-year-old dad, and you do need a 20-something-year-old dad. But what it made me really realize is each one of my kids got a different version of me. And so it made me very present to recognize, excuse me, what version are they getting today? And is it the version that they need? Right? Because what my 14-year-old got when she was 5 is very different than what my 5-year-old gets. But the truth is, all 5-year-olds need a certain type of dad, right? And whether that's where you should be or it doesn't matter. They still need that. My 3-year-old, who's looking at me right now, who just woke up, right, needs a certain type of dad. And the truth is, she's going to get a much better version of me than my 14-year-old got when she was 3. And so it's something that I'm, again, hyper present about knowing and understanding on a daily basis, right? Trying to be the right dad for them that day.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I know, Marcus, you probably can continue with that because you got two different generations
Oh
of
man.
kids.
Yes. Yeah. Listen. I am honestly more in tune now to like little stuff that I looked over to Abi's point about his son. So my middle child and my baby girl are like daddy's girls, like daddy, 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 to the point where I know just my physical presence is just wildly gratifying for him. So my baby girl is 8. She just started playing softball. I'm not a softball fan. Hey, think what you want about softball, but I grew up playing softball at family reunions and
There's not a lot
playing.
of good family reunion
Just
softball stories.
yeah, nah, just not. I'm not a softball fan, and she is a God-given athlete. So every sport that she's played, she's like the best on the field, right? So she just finished basketball. I'm signing her up for all these basketball camps, and then flag football season's coming around. So she played flag football last year. I'm like, she gonna play flag football this year. Well, she didn't want to play because she had a bad experience with one of the coaches. So I had to bite it, and she wanted to play softball. So I haven't been to any of her softball practices up until this last one. And I was like, I had a conversation with a best friend of mine who his daughter played college softball. He's like, bro, you need to go and make sure you support your daughter. He's like, bottom line, go. I know you're a basketball guy, but go. So she had practice the other day, and I pull up at her practice, and she's at bat, right? And my wife is recording her, and she takes a swing and she misses, and then the next before the next pitch, I'm like, keep your eye on it, baby, you got it. She turned around and looked, and she was like all smiles, like that, just I showed up, right? So that impact right there, I was like, man, like she really just wants the support from her pops. So we're talking, this podcast is talking about kind of a lessons learned, but for me, like in real time, I'm still learning as a father, and I'm still learning to make sure that I'm present and supportive in their endeavors, and just being aware of that.
It's two areas I want to hit before we close this out in a little bit. But one area I want to hit, we were warming up to a conversation. We talked about some of those things we have done. And I know I've had this conversation with a couple of you, but man, there's so many, and we all got a similar friend group and outside friend groups and stuff. And I've been kind of doing it. Maybe that'll be my next book. I want to talk about, maybe this will be around girl. Maybe I'll just interview 50 fathers and write a book about it, right? Because I don't think there's enough conversations around. I know for me personally, I didn't grow up with a dad in the house and different things like that. So I think it almost makes us not talk about these things in a healthy way in our own family, right? Because, we just like, oh, that wasn't something that's normal conversation for me. So I'm going forward. So, what happens, what kind of experiences out there can you talk to listeners about, or people who are going to view some of the clips and stuff? What experiences can you give people? And I know I have my own experience that I've shared, but when communication breaks down with your daughter, even if a small communication breakdown, 5 days, or in my case, which I'm very open about, almost a year.
Mine too.
Yeah, mine too.
When communication breaks down,
Mm-hmm.
I'll even start. How do you, and it goes back, I heard Abi say something earlier that really like made me go down this road. And it went about the intentionality of, you can be in your own head, in your own world, and you walked in the house, but you returned and said, this is a moment I got to pay attention to.
Right.
For me, I wasn't listening. And I was more in the instruction phase, not the listening phase. And even when it was frustrating to her, it became about how frustrating it was to me.
Mm.
Yeah. And when I made it about me, I wasn't able to listen anymore. And when she basically was like, I'm throwing my hands up, I'm essentially block you, and I'm not going to talk to you. I made it even more about me.
Mm.
It's like the more she dug in, the more I dug in. And it became no adult in the room.
Mm-hmm.
It became, you don't even understand the sacrifices I made for you. You don't understand what I've done for you. You don't understand, like I wake up every day for you. But what I wasn't understanding is that had nothing to do with the fact that she was in crisis and needed a dad.
Mm.
She didn't need me to be the person. She just needed me to be in present. But it took me a year plus to learn that. And I will just end with this, and I'll let you guys talk about your if you want to add something to it. It took me 8 months to get out of my own way, where I just had to let it go and go. You know what? I'm gonna just be here and be support. I'm gonna change my tune. I'm gonna text her, or I'm gonna tell her sister, send a message, or I'm just gonna be like, hey, I'm gonna be in Birmingham. If you want to have lunch, I'll be there. I'm gonna continue to support the things that I support, even though she doesn't even need it. I'm gonna continue to pay your cell phone bill. I'm gonna continue to, even though you're 28 years old, I'm gonna continue to pay your cell phone bill. I'm not going to be petty. I'm going to be a dad. And that was my oldest daughter, who I've had a good relationship with, which I think crushed me more than anything. And, we are back now, and I go see her every time I go to Birmingham, which is every month. But now I think that has made our relationship stronger. It made me a better father, because I realized that was the father I was showing up as for a very long time. Even subconsciously a little bit, it was like, I set the tone for what happens, because I'm the one that's helping you pay your rent. I'm the one that's paying your cell phone bill. So if I don't like something you're doing, then I'm going to press that. I'm going to press that, hey, look, I don't agree. So I'm going to use these levers. And that was not fair. And I didn't even want to hear why she was doing some of the things that she was doing. Like, she wanted to quit a job. She wanted to quit being an accountant. And for me, I'm like, oh, you're making all this money. But then I wasn't understanding that that's not what gave her purpose. That's not what filled her up. I'm like, how are you going to go quit an accountant job to go be a farmer? Like, what does that even make any sense? But what I didn't know, that she was going to be a farmer to be the accountant at the farm, to also learn how to farm. And she was replacing the income, but I didn't even allow that to be the conversation. So I'll stop there. So what happens when communication breaks down? What can you tell people, or some techniques that you can work through, or some lessons learned, or what happened if you have any experience with that?
Yeah, I'm living that now. I mean, having a conversation with you over, we went on vacation and stuff, man. But having that conversation, I didn't tell anybody that. My wife is the only person that knows that situation and what's going on in my life. My daughter, me and her are estranged right now. We've been estranged for almost 2 years now, right? And so, she reached back to me probably about a year and a half ago and really wanted to reconnect and talk through some things, because I think she's getting some help. And, I was getting help for her too, right? She's talking to somebody, and I'm not putting her business out there, but all that to say is, she gave me the understanding that, and to your point, Todd, is to get out my own way. Like, I'm not running her life. And so I had to really I had to play another role. I had to play more of a patience role. Not a patient, but be in a role of patience. I had to be open to her and what she needed, as far as questions answered, or just being supportive. And so that kind of went its route, and it didn't work. And now I'm at a phase where now I have to do this internally, to where and I write her every day. I write her on my life every day, even though we don't talk every day. I still send her a text, but I write her a note every day, and that's what I'm gonna do, is I'm gonna put a book out, but it's gonna be to her, of every day that we don't get to talk or speak, is something I can annotate and just let her know that I love her. This is how my day went, but this is me thinking about you, right? And so that's the role that I have to take on now, based on past dramas, right? Situations that happen with her mom. All that's built up with the immature role that I did as a male in that role, and that's the only role she really kind of knows about me. But I had to work through that, and now we're here, right? And so, but to really kind of close it, is, as a father, you have to be able to have this understanding that your kids are watching you. Always. They're always watching you. You're always on stage. Yes, we went through the military. We did our 30 years. We did a lot of stuff in the military, but they looked at all those they're looking to see what right looks like. And if I can still continue to show her what right looks like, even though I had to I didn't say play a role in the military. I had to do that job. It was probably bad for her. She saw that reflected. I didn't really give her a lot of time, but now I'm in this role as a father, retired. I have this time, but hopefully coming out of this, I can be a better support and father for her. Thanks for that, man.
No, I appreciate that.
Man, this is a very powerful thing. Charles, thank you for, sharing that and being vulnerable with that, man. I'll tell you, um, again, my relationship with my 24-year-old, we had a patch, right? Because I didn't raise her after me and my previous wife got divorced, right? Just because military, literally on different continents, right? No excuse, right? But we didn't have the same type of relationship growing up that I have now with my daughters that are in the house. And so we had to have those tough conversations. But here's what it let me realize. Let's just, if this was a balancing act, if you will, my 3-year-old owes me nothing, right? Nothing. Only thing that she owes me is love, right? But I don't expect her, right, to do anything. In other words, all of the onus is on me, right? And that's obvious. She's 3. My 8-year-old's about the same, but she's a little bit more mature. She knows a little bit more, and so yeah, you do owe a little bit something now. Your tax that you have to pay is a bit more, right? And so you owe me respect, right? You owe me certain things. Like my 3-year-old, she don't owe me respect. She gonna say what she want to do, and she gonna get away with it, right? But my 14-year-old, right? So is a little bit different, right? Now you owe me respect. You also owe me some communication, right? And so as they start to mature, that balance goes from 100 to 0 to 50-50. And the truth is, you ideally want to, when they reach adulthood, that it's not just you having to do all of the communication, right? That it's reciprocal. It doesn't always work out like that. But when I'm recognizing with my 24-year-old is one of the things that I had to do, to all your points, was give her space, but I also had to hold her accountable to her 50%, right? And I had to say, hey, listen, this is right, wrong, or indifferent. The past is the past, right? And not just to accept me who you are, but hey, like I'm willing to go as far as I need to, but it has to be reciprocated, right? And so that was a very important conversation, and it was one that we both had to sit with for a while to recognize that it's got to be symbiotic in intent and desire, right? Because you can only push so far because they don't need you in the same way that they need you when they were 3. My brother, years ago, I was 19 years old, he said something that is so simple, but it was so profound that literally changed how I saw parenthood before I was even a parent. And he said, hey, man, our parents aren't always right, right? And what the reason that it changed everything is because literally up until that point, even though I might disagree, the way that my life was like, of course they are. Your parents. Your parents are always right, right? Whether they're actually correct or not, that's the foundation. What that allowed me to do, and it freed me up to do, was give them grace when they're wrong. And it also allows me to reach back and recognize that yes, my kid's gonna know that I'm always right, but I'm not. I'm not always gonna be right. And so I have to make sure that I can self correct, be humble, be open to criticism, right? And have those conversations to recognize there's going to be so many times to where I believe that I'm right, but I'm wrong. But it's not about that moment. It's about what I do from there, right? How do I adjust and ensure that I'm making the changes in behaviors? Because one of the things that I think we've all been guilty of is just being busy, and you
Yeah.
justify it to yourself, right? Like, oh, but look at what I'm building, right?
Mhm.
Look at
Yeah.
man, they don't care.
They
They
don't
don't
care
care.
at all.
They couldn't care less, right? It probably wasn't until my retirement ceremony that my kids knew that I was in the Space Force. You know what I mean? you know, and I'm being slightly facetious, but the truth is they don't care, right? You're dead, and that's all they need you to be, right?
Amen.
So yeah, it's the communication thing can happen naturally, and there's always going to be a conflict. You've always got to be the adult in the room, but I do think that it gets to a point to where even when you were wrong, you got to give yourself some grace, but still recognize that it's got to happen in the middle, especially once they reach adulthood. And again, ideally, you mature that relationship to get to there.
No,
Man.
I appreciate that. You're so right, man. I remember my kids. It's funny because even today, even I'm retired and I'm do other stuff now. This conversation is probably 16, 17 years old in my house. Kids be like, what do you do?
Mhm.
Like, especially my youngest daughter. She's like the tourist. She'll call me. I'll be like, hey, I gotta, and I feel like Tommy sometime, man, to my youngest daughter, because sometimes she'll be like, she'll call me. She'll be like, where you at? I'll be like, oh, I'm on my way to a meeting. She like, you got a job? What do you do? Like, what exactly do you
You
do?
ain't got no
Yeah, you ain't
job.
got
Yeah.
no job. Stop lying. I'm like, no. And then what gets funny is I can't explain to her what I do. I'm
Right.
like,
Exactly.
I do a lot of things. I got a lot of
Right.
things going on. Like,
Uh,
like,
Yeah.
like she was like, you every time I call you, you got something different going on. What do you do? But it's funny, yeah. But yeah, Marcus, you had something?
Man, this subject is let me level set. Okay. This topic is very, very important to me right now. An old person told me a long time ago, and it's proven out to be true in multiple situations, but you lose your kids, everyone from 18 to about 25, and lose them not in the term of like they're gone forever or whatnot, but literally they're going to a stage of maturation that you may not appreciate, right? And the more you push and try to bring them back, the further you're going to push them away. To Charles's point, exercising a bit of patience is very important, especially for a father, because that time frame is crucial in life, and all you're doing is nothing but worrying obsessively about their safety, the decisions that they're making, because those are paramount years in a young adult between 18 and 25, right? So I went through this twice, and it's funny because my ex is going through it now with one of our daughters. Right, she hasn't talked to her in 2 months, and this is the first time in her life that she's experienced it, and I've experienced this with her and her sister on a couple occasions. What I end up doing with our situation is that I realize that the communication with her is more important than not. What I determined is that I'm gonna do whatever it needs to reestablish communication, because I cannot have my daughter out here thinking that her father is not available for her when I am available for
Mm,
her, and I need
yeah.
to fit whatever she needs me to be at that moment because she's counting on me. Maybe she doesn't have the ability to articulate what she's feeling, but what I need to do is make sure that I'm open enough and putting my pride aside to allow that communication to happen and organically. And it's debilitating at times. Like, I it's been times where my daughter wasn't talking to me, and this is funny because I just told her this. And I wake up in the morning and I had a call from like 2:30 in the morning. And my heart is about to jump out my chest. I'm like, oh my God, this is the time where she needed me
Yeah.
and I wasn't available for her or whatnot. And first thing I do, I go to the voicemail message. The voicemail message was she butt dialed me and she was at the club. And I was like, it's like, I thought this was the moment. I was going to throw my cape on and go. Nah, bro. She was just out here living. And I had to like think, my mom told me, and I'm a believer, and I'm a Christian, and she was like, hey, what you got to do is you got to pray for her, because God gonna protect her like he protected you and he protected me. And you need to, not live in the spirit of worry. And so I've learned that, and just in the last 4 or 5 years with them, understanding that I cannot control what they do. I
Right.
can I can only you move from being a parent into like a consultant. And
Yeah.
at this stage of my life with my two older kids, I'm the consultant. And Sometimes as being a consultant goes, sometimes they listen to your advice and sometimes they don't. But not to be emotionally attached to every decision that they make. So that's what I'm learning here.
No, I appreciate that. And the worst thing is being an unpaid consultant.
Hey, that's what we all are. That's what we all are.
Because when you're a paid consultant, you're a little bit unemotional about the person listening to you, and you're like, hey, you're an unpaid consultant. You're like, but I got to care about you. No, I appreciate that. No, I wanted to end with that being the topic because I think number one, that's a vulnerable moment. No one had to, and I appreciate all of y'all sharing different perspectives. I tell you, for me, and in this stage of my life, and I just that's why I was partially late too. I was having a conversation with my wife this morning, and it's just one of those things, man. I don't know. I mean, I think Flan and I are the only ones that in the ripe old age of 50 at this point. We have reached the 50 milestone. But man, I don't know, man. The last 2 years, 49 and 50, man, it's just been different for me. And I think how I think about how I live today, the conversations I have with men, I would be honest with you, at 25, 35, I would have never even thought about having a conversation with any of you about anything like this. I mean, I might even stretch it and say when I was even maybe close to 40, which was 10 years ago. But today, man, this is the type of conversations that if this ain't it, I really don't want to talk about it.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be about our daughters, but I just spent 4 days with Flanagan about a month ago. And I will tell you, man, it was one of the most fulfilling 4 days that I've ever spent in years because every conversation was this conversation. Not all of them was sorrow. It was a bunch of laughing and it was a bunch of, but every conversation was, and it felt so natural. And I know I talked to Marcus, and I'm closing this out with just how much I appreciate all of you. And I know I talked to Marcus, and this isn't a slight at Marcus because people think it is. I talked to Marcus probably more than I talked to anybody on earth. It's so funny now, man. I honestly think if I don't talk to Marcus for 3 consecutive days, I got to check on him because I don't think I got to be like, hey, man, I'm just making sure you're okay, brother. I haven't seen your sunglasses picture pop up on my cell phone in 3 days. Like, what were you like? Were you all right out there? He's like, yeah, man, I'm just busy. And and Abi, and I'll tell you this with Abi, man, in a short year, our relationship and conversations has probably changed more than with any man I've ever known in my life. Like just a complete 360-degree shift on what we used to talk about to what we talk about now. I mean, like a year ago, we used to talk about, I don't know, stuff I probably did not want to talk about, which was like the military and what you do in the military.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep.
Probably every conversation you brought to me, I would probably side eye you like, yeah, that sounds so amazing. Like, yes, go national security. Yeah, like amazing.
Right, exactly.
But now, man, the richness, man, I tell you, I appreciate y'all because, man, just like the rest of these brothers, but you have been able to, what's something I like to do. I'm a person who likes to think about 100 things a day and be curious about 1,000 things a day. And man, you remind me of another mutual friend of ours, but I think you even do it better than him. You're able to tell me a few things in our conversation that probably is dangerous because it makes me go do it. You were able to reframe some of my thoughts, which I really don't appreciate you doing sometimes because the next day you see that thing implemented. It's like,
right.
Light bulb time. Let's go do it. Right. So I've appreciated all the relationships I've had with all of y'all at different stages of my life. I think, one reason I want to do this and have this type of conversation of really just for the visual effect or the voice effect of people seeing 4 men that's able to talk about conversations that 4 men typically don't talk about. And I would say that no one knows none of us to be, I won't use the word, I don't know any other word. Abi, I know you probably give me another word. We're not weak men.
Yeah.
We are men who are very stand in our truth type men who live in a world that we have navigated for many years and successfully have navigated, and we are able to show faults on our sleeve. So I thought that was very important because just like one of you made a comment earlier that our kids are watching us, that is super important. But man, there are a lot of men that are watching us.
Yeah.
There are a lot of men that we are around that's younger and older and equal age that watch how we move and we watch how they move. I thought it was very critical to at least show men that it's okay to move as a strong man, but also have vulnerability and also have things that we are dealing with raising women in this world, and how our interaction in raising women is so crucial. Just like we always have these conversations about how important a dad is in a man's life. But I think we never have a conversation how important a man is in a woman's life. A dad is in raising a young lady into being a woman. My two daughters have been so fortunate to give me everything I have done right to develop them to be strong women. And they have also been so fortunate for them to tell me everything I've done wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I value equally those lessons that I have been able to learn for them, because it helps me to move out into the world and be more intentional. So with that, I'll finish this out. We always, with our last 8 guests in season 1, we always do a rapid fire, but we're not going to do a rapid fire. We're going to do a rapid sentence. We're going to have one sentence, one comment for each of you, and we'll close this thing out. So the sentence that we're going to go with, the last word is, being a girl dad has taught me. That is the prompt. Being a girl dad, or being a dad who has raised and is raising women, whatever you want to put that in term of, what has that done? So being a girl dad has taught me, raising women has taught me. We'll start with you, Flan.
All right. Being a girl dad has taught me we're just as essential as mothers, period, full stop. Don't let anyone shrink us.
Okay. All right. What about you, Marcus?
Being a girl dad has taught me patience, understanding, and knowing that I'm not always right.
All right. Fair. What about you, Abi?
Definitely being a girl dad has taught me that the impacts of the things that I do today will affect her every day. And so I'm very conscious of the things that I say and do today.
Awesome. Yeah. For me, man, I've thought about this, man. Being a girl dad has taught me that the actions I take and what my girls take away from me has a direct effect on the next 5-6 generations of our family. So my actions dictate the success of the future generations of my family, of who they see men are and how men perform in their life. So that's how I see it. Hey, this conversation has been it's not been about answers, man. I appreciate you so much. We've had Abi Scott, we've had Marcus Oats, we've had Charles Flanagan. These brothers I've known for anywhere from 6-7 years to 30 years. And it doesn't matter if I've known them 30 seconds. These are conversations you should have with your friend groups. These are conversations you should be having with people you're talking about. There's nothing wrong with being vulnerable as a man. There's nothing wrong with being open. I hope you took away something from this conversation with these men. This is segment 1. We'll have 2 more of conversations with these guys. We'll laugh in the next one. But yeah, this has been Unbounded Podcast. I'm your host, Todd Simmons. This has been our episode, mid-season break, fathers and daughters, what it's like to be a girl dad, with 4 girl dads of all kinds of generations of women that we're raising and have raised and continue to protect out into this world. We're out here, but stay tuned. Look for this on all your podcast channels. Look for this on YouTube. And we will be back with episode 2 with these distinguished gentlemen very soon.